Hello, everyone, and welcome to AGH at Home. This is Workshop Wednesday, and my name is Tyler, and I'm very happy that you could be with us today on this very toasty mid-June day. If this is your first time with us, then welcome for the first time. And if you are joining us again, if you've been with us before, then welcome back. I'm going to go through all the supplies that we are going to be using and that you'll need to be able to follow along today. If you would like to just sort of sit back and watch, that's absolutely fine also. Today, we are going to be looking at wire frame sculpture and using some wires like this to create a couple of 3D things. So the one example I have here that I'm kind of working on is this little tree thing here. So I've actually made this out of pipe cleaners, which if you don't have wire pipe cleaners pipe cleaners, they work just as well and sometimes better because they're a little more flexible and not as pointy. I made this one a little bit earlier, and as you can see, there's some pointy bits there that I haven't quite bent down yet. With this one, I was using a pair of pliers, but depending on what kind of wire you're using, you may want to use some tools or wear a pair of gloves or something like that. So the materials that you will need are some wire. This stuff I have this is like green gardening wire. You can find this at a dollar store. This stuff I actually prefer. I like this stuff a lot better because I like it a lot better than this stuff. It's a little more flexible and a little more forgiving if you touch the ends. You could also, like I said, use pipe cleaners. Basically the same thing. What else do I have? Let's take a look at the table. So I do have a pair of pliers and wire cutters handy, so I will be using those. I'm not going to use, that's the heavier wire, I'm not going to use those today, so I'm going to put those away, but I've got my sort of rolls of the green wire. I've got some of it sort of stretched out. I've got a pencil. Here's my example. I'll put that over there. A pair of scissors. The nice thing about using this green wire or pipe cleaners is that scissors can often cut right through both of these, depending on how sharp they are. A little bit of plasticine or modeling clay. I got some tape just in case. If any of the ends are sharp, you can always put a little piece of tape on the end. Kind of like that. It was kind of a quick, sloppy job, but there, looks a little better. And that way it's a little bit easier on your fingers. And then something for a base, which today I'm going to use these little pieces of cardboard, but you could really use anything you wanted to. You could get creative, like maybe I could use this spool. You could really use whatever, and I'll show you how. So we're going to start by looking at how to put some of this stuff together, and it might seem kind of like, it might seem a little bit obvious, but there is a couple techniques that might make things a little bit easier. And they also might give you a couple of ideas or inspiration. So I'm going to do this part with the pipe cleaners. Actually, I'm going to use nice bright pink so that it's nice and easy to see off the table. And there's a couple little things here, and we're going to go through each of these. Once we go through these, then we'll be ready to sort of work on our tree. Okay. So the first one that we're going to look at is how to make nice, precise bends and folds. And you could use, your hands and kind of bend it like this, but then it'll just it'll bend soft, but it'll sort of spring out, which is good if you want like a nice soft bend. But if you want it to be like an angle, notice how before I had my hands way at the ends, but for this time, I'm going to put my fingers right close to wherever I want this angle to be. So I'm going to hold it pinch it with this hand, and then with the other one, I'm going to turn it and sort of bend it, and what happens is it sort of stays in place. And I can keep doing that, like that, and again, and again, and I can get this kind of zigzag thing. All right, so I'm going to straighten those out actually. So I've got the V, which is, and then also a hook. So it's basically the same, except instead of doing the V part, the bend in the middle, I'm going to do that way up here at the end. So it can look like a check mark, or it can be rounded. And to make it rounded, we'll use both my fingers to kind of bend it a little roundy like that. Okay, so there's those. To give your piece of wire a little more volume or thickness, you can always double or triple up, but another thing you can do is make a spiral. So taking a pencil and wrapping it around like that, and then just slide the pencil out, and then you've got this cool twirly spiral. And then this is where things can get a little more three-dimensional. So we're using something, this is basically flat. It's like a line, and we're going to use these to make something that can freestand. So for this one, I'm going to take 2 pipe cleaners or wires. I'm going to bend them into the V, but I'm going to keep going and sort of loop that kind of like around my finger like this. Okay, so you can see it kind of crossing over. And then keeping my finger on the inside, I'm going to pinch where they cross with my thumb and my finger, and I'm going to twist and twist and twist and twist and twist. Now don't twist it too tight so you can't get your finger out. And you could keep twisting it down until you have kind of like a hoop or like a lollipop. And from here, you can already do all kinds of stuff. Like I could turn this into a bit of a person if I wanted to. So where I'll bend those up, those will be the arms. And then maybe where the legs go down here, I'll pinch it and twist. And then pulling that apart gives it a little more body, and some feet. And then those arms are super, super long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bend them in half like that, and then twist. And I'm basically doing the same thing, but just for the hands there. Now I'm going through this little part kind of quickly. I'm just wanting to show you what you can do simply by starting from something like a loop like that. You can turn it into doing this sort of method opens things up quite a bit. All right, so the next one I'm going to do is a supersized version of it. So I'm going to use 4 or 5 pipe cleaners. Now I know I'm using lots here. It's totally fine. I can always kind of like unwrap some of them and reuse them somewhere else. Again, starting the same, I'm going to use 2 fingers this time because I want a bigger loop. So I'm going to bend these, sort of cross it over, and start my twisting. Just maybe twist once or twice, slide the fingers out. And now I've done the same thing as before, but I've used 4, 5 pipe cleaners. And now what I can do is I can start sort of spreading these loops out a little more if I want to. And perhaps I could twist one of the loops sideways, or a couple of them, and now it's starting to look a bit like a flower. Or I could twist them and sort of shove them back together a little bit. Now this part takes a little more manipulating, and then I can kind of squish a little bit if I want to. And now you can see how I've gone from something very flat to now it's more of a kind of a ball or balloon shape, or like an egg beater, or like a whisk, right? Which is exactly how they're made. Not with pipe cleaners, obviously, but like with bits of wire that are sort of looped and then made like that. All right. And then if I wanted to, I could twist the rest of this. And this is where we learn things like, okay, our V, why did we do that in the first place? Well, now I'm going to attach 2 things together. So I'm going to attach this V thing to this. I'm going to put the V in like that. And then kind of holding all the pieces, you can either twist this here like that, or I can wrap one of them around, 2 of them around a little bit, and now I've attached. Maybe I'll do it once more. Okay. And then same goes for the hook. So maybe I'll take these and sort of put these over here. I'm going to twist those a little bit. And the hook, maybe I'll hook it around there. And then this little tail, a little part that's sticking out, I'm going to sort of wrap it around nice and tight. Nice and tight, and twist it. And now I've got this whole other thing that I can kind of play with. So right now it's kind of looking a bit like a person, but maybe I'll come back to this little thing and turn it into something kind of abstract. Once you know how to sort of make these shapes or forms, have some fun with manipulating and moving these things all around. Maybe I'll thread that through there and kind of hook it on. And you can keep adding pieces and changing the shape and the form as you go. Okay, so that's the very, very basic sort of tutorial, like some of the things that we're going to be working with. And now let's move into the sort of main event here with the tree. And I'm going to use this green gardening wire. I've got, maybe a dozen, 15, 16 pieces that I've cut. They're all they're mostly the same length. They're a little bit different. as you can see, those are way longer. That's fine. But you want kind of a bundle to start with. All right. Move these out of the way. And holding it at the middle, I'm going to bend like the V or the U shape. And I'm going to twist, sort of bend it again across each other, like I was making that loop, that lollipop thing before. And then I'm going to, not too tightly because I don't want to lock my fingers in there, but I'm going to twist. Okay, so again, I'm keeping my fingers in there and I'm pinching this part. You can pinch it with your fingers, or you can even use your whole hand, kind of like that. Kind of grab it and then twist. And then sometimes it's easier to twist your other hand that's in the loop. Just hold this one in place. I'm going to do that a couple of times, not too many, because I want to leave lots of this stuff up here to play with. It all depends how tall you want your tree to be. If you want your tree to be really, really tall, you'll need really, really long wires. And if you're using pipe cleaners and they're only, this length and you want to make them really, really long, you can kind of take two and twist them together to make nice long ones. Like that. All right, so I've got a loop at the end. I've got a Y. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start turning this Y up here into some gnarly fun branches. So I'm going to grab, let's see, there's a couple there. Maybe I'll grab, a few here to start. I'm going to sort of separate these a little bit. Let's go ahead and separate all of these actually. Some of these are all twisted around, but that's fine. And now I'm going to select, I can move these over this way. I'm going to work with this little bunch here. So I'm going to take, there's like 4 there, and there's 3 or 4 there. And I'm going to twist these, holding it at the trunk here. And I'm going to twist these around and around and around. Try and hold it closer for you so you can see. The more I twist it, those kind of like twirl together. Till maybe I'll go about that far. And then I'm going to do the same thing again. So maybe just with these two, I'm going to twist and twist and twist, and then twist and twist and twist, twist. And now you can see this is starting to look a little bit like a branch, because what branches do is when they grow, they kind of break off into kind of Y shapes or V shapes. All right, so I'm going to leave those for now. Those are probably a bit too long. Actually, maybe I'll bend that backwards, twist it in a little bit just so it's not so crazy. Okay. And now I'm going to move over here. I'm going to grab another little bundle and same thing. Spread it into kind of a Y shape. Twist, twist. Now I imagine right now it's kind of looking like a big display of weird wires, but I'll try and maybe after this one I'll pause and show it up nice and close. Okay, so I'm going to go maybe about that far. All right, so you can see there's the loop that I had, the trunk. These are all the unused pieces so far, and these are the ones that I've sort of twisted together. All right, and then now I'm going to, instead of keep going here, I'm going to maybe work on this one down here. So this little bundle, I'm going to split that apart into a bit of a Y, twist it a little bit so I can have a longer branch coming off. And I think that's good. That little piece is super long, so I'm going to take my little wire cutters and I'm going to clip that right off. Maybe those as well. Give my tree a little bit of a haircut. And then I got to come back to this one. So I'm going to be doing this throughout the entire tree. Every piece of wire is going to be twisted with another, I'm going to sort of section them off into bundles. And everything needs to kind of be twisted together. So even these up here. So now I'm down to just two wires. And I'm twisting those together. And the neat thing about doing this, especially is, as you, right? So here in the trunk, I had 15 or so, but then it was folded over. So there's about a width of like 30 wires there. And then here I chose maybe, I don't know, 8 of them. And then it's split off into 4 and 4. And it keeps getting thinner and thinner as I get closer and closer to, as it gets farther and farther away from the trunk, which is what happens to a tree in nature, right? If you look at the branches, the further and further they grow away from the main trunk, the thinner and thinner they get. So it's kind of a neat way to do that and get a nicely proportioned tree as well. I'm going to clip that and that and that and that. So those are super long. All right. Now I'm just going to kind of speed through the rest of these here if I can. Now, if you want to keep, if you have a piece that's super long and you want to keep it, you don't want to cut it off. You can either make a super long branch or you can bend it back towards the center of the tree and then kind of twist it around the branch like that. This is a nice thing to do, especially if you're using sharp wires like this. Bending that back is a really, really good idea because then you don't accidentally prick yourself. And then let's do this big bundle. I'm going to do that all together. Twist those. And I'm going to temporarily bend all the other branches out of the way. I can move them back later, just so that they're not getting tangled up in the rest of this stuff. All right, so now I've got this little V. And if you're twisting a V, then you're sort of twisting the right thing, or a Y. You're starting with a V and making it turn into a Y shape. Okay, let's do this one. All right, so now I've got everything kind of twisted together. Cut some of these a little bit shorter so they're not so crazy. And now we get to decide a little bit of how we want our branches to grow. Do we want them to grow mostly up? Do we want them to be, you can kind of play around with that. And I usually wait until I'm done sort of twisting all the pieces together to do that. Okay, I can twist a few pieces off to the side, and if I hold it to you like this, you can see I'm bending one, this way and this way and this way and that way in all different directions, so that when I turn it around, like, it takes up space in a three-dimensional way, and it's not just kind of flat. Twist some of those, finish that up. All right. So now, I don't know about you, but I haven't seen many trees with just a loop at the bottom. So this is where we use this to kind of root our tree. So what you can do to begin is you can start by pulling those out, sort of spreading them out like that. And there's a couple things you can do from this point. One of the things is you can kind of twist them and pull them open, and pull them kind of open and flat, so that your tree can kind of stand, like that. So you can see it from the side. So at this point, you wouldn't really need a base because it has one built in. However, if you would like to, you can cut these. And you can do almost the same thing that you did at the top. Well, yeah, it is the same thing, but I'm using shorter, smaller pieces, twisting them around each other, and I'm getting left except this time I'm going to sort of draw them down to create the root system of my tree. Because our trees need roots so that they can eat and drink and grow nice and tall. And I'm just doing the same thing as I did up above, splitting a bundle into a V shape and then twisting and sort of branching off as we go. And now I've got my branches up here, my trunk, and then my roots. And again, you could just leave it at that. Or if you wanted, you could attach this to something. Maybe I want to put it on this thing, like it's an old sort of gnarly tree that's been growing around. Just kind of bending it around this thing here. Kind of like that. Or you could use, actually kind of like that. I might put it back in there after a little bit of this stuff. It's just regular plasticine or modeling clay. I'm going to make a sort of a little bit of a pancake thing. Spread these open. Just kind of press it in. And then you can kind of fold this over. And you can trim those or move it around however you want. And now, once I have this secured there, now I can really start to get kind of a fine-tuned, because this is like stuck in place now, right? It's going to be so much easier. I'll move it. It's going a lot easier for me to kind of fine tune the little branches if I'm not actually having to hold it with one hand and twist with the other. Now I can kind of twist and twangle and stuff with both my hands. All right. So I'm going to hold this up nice and close to the camera so that you can get a good look at it. There's our tree. Our final product. And again, this is the one I did with pipe cleaners. It's a little bit brighter, so it's maybe a little bit easier to see. You can see I did the exact same thing, just with pipe cleaners. So there you go, friends. I hope you enjoyed our little show today. And if you'd like to make something and share it with us, that would be super lovely. You can post it to Facebook or Instagram and use the hashtag AGH at home. And then we'll see it and we can share it with all of our friends, which would be super fun. And I look forward to creating more things with you in the future. Again, my name's Tyler. This is AGH at Home, Workshop Wednesdays, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.